Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Oh, you're right. Okay, well, I don't talk a lot in the beginning of this, but if you're introducing me. Okay. Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. Once again, we have an old friend, 6 years, we just somewhat did the math, in the house, Andrea Beaver, recently married. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Her gangster river guide husband is a connoisseur of Yeti, I want to say. That's what I always think of when I think about him. I'm like, oh, he has all the cool Yeti stuff.
He has all things Yeti.
He's a good dude. But today, Andrea and I's past is all things sports wellness. She's the founder of a business that I went into and started off as an athlete and then ended up doing some marketing with him. So we've got some like friendship history and business history. And as you know, Denver is such a small world. We know a lot of the same humans doing a lot of the human optimization, similar type agenda situations. So without that, I'm going to let Andrea introduce herself a little bit and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, thanks, first of all,
Yes.
KO, thanks for having me.
And cheers.
And cheers.
Sorry, that should have been step one.
Yeah, cheers is to our tequila drinks.
Here, here.
I think my background has always been in health and wellness, and especially from the athlete standpoint, just from growing up very, very active and in all things sports.
And two sisters? There's three
I have
total,
two
right?
older sisters. Yeah, and I was definitely, I think, more of the tomboy, the one that did all sports. So my dad and mom were always chasing me around every weekend, following whatever sport I was doing.
Nice.
And I think at a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be involved in sports in a work setting, I suppose.
Did you play in college?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I was a gymnast for 14 years.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, and I was competitive. So I did private club gymnastics at DU. From a really young age all the way until high school. And then I did compete in high school for gymnastics as well as played soccer, and I was on the diving team.
Okay, so diving and soccer, I think I knew gymnastics, I didn't. I should have subbed you when I did do gymnastics stuff for CrossFit. Like, yo, can you do this muscle up? So
I don't know if I could do that now.
Better than I could have.
I'd like to try it now. We'll see what happened. I'd probably see a bunch of stars doing any gymnastics moves. Anyways, so I was the kid that was the first responder to any of my teammates getting hurt.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't wait to get there. Like, oh, someone fell, someone's in gymnastics. I'm like, I'm there for you, and I would be there, and I'd assess it, and I'd be like, are you okay? So that was me.
Well, it was in the stars then. That was easy.
It was in the stars.
Yeah.
So I think at one point I wanted to be a sports medicine doctor, and then I found out that I really hated school.
Yeah, I'm 100 with you there. Yeah.
So that kind of took me into my career outside of high school. I actually, here's very raw and authentic, I dropped out of high school actually.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. October of my senior year, I had a couple months left. I didn't want to, I just couldn't.
So you like really hated school?
Oh, I really hated school.
Okay. If I didn't have lacrosse like that, obviously like pending, you got to pass the NCAA test and our ACTs are good as minimum.
No.
I did okay, but it so didn't identify with me. So, okay.
Yeah.
So what'd you do after that?
So I got my GED because my parents were not going to let me drop out of high school and just be, just do whatever and not do anything at all. So that was the rule. I was a little bit blacklisted from part of my family because how dare you
Well, these are old school days.
Yeah.
Like things have changed a lot. We forget.
So dropped out of high school and then went and got my medical assistant certification.
This is so much better than I even thought. Like I'm so glad that we don't do, and if you listen to any of my casts, I don't do a lot of like research background. Like I just let whatever comes out. This is even better. This is why. Sorry. Carry on. Perfect.
And then I lived in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's where I got that for a year. And then came back to Colorado and started working for a medical staffing company. And quickly they realized that I had a lot of leadership qualities. And so they promoted me very quickly to managing this company at 18 years old.
Oh, that does not, so I'm just going to chime in on that day, but Andrea is genuinely strong female. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, let's say I always got respect. I mean, you can always kind of tell like your alpha females, 1000% Andrea. So that, again, in the stars. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that right there really shaped my entrepreneur entrepreneurial skill set, I guess. I really always wanted to like be better in wherever I was. So how can I lead? How can I create a team? How can I make systems and processes better? So I think that's what always kept driving me for every job that I ever had. It's like, well, okay, how can I make it better for the next people that are there? So yes, staffing, did that, and then I decided I was going to go to nursing school. And so I went to nursing school for about 1.5 years. And then
I didn't even know this either. Okay.
So this is all before the age of 20.
Wow, these are like some grown-up decisions.
Yeah.
Like there's such an irony because on paper it's like GED, not diploma, whatever.
Yeah.
And
drop out of high school. I mean, you know.
Yeah, but now you're running a medical company, and I love that you just said like I wanted to be a doctor, but then I saw the school. And the funny thing is, for all of us like athletes, or once upon a time, we go to you guys first before we see the doctors, because like the doctors, no offense to my doctors, but they don't usually understand our lifestyle. They don't get it. So there's like such a deep irony and all that.
Yeah.
But anyways, don't trust the resume, y'all.
Decided I didn't want to do nursing school, and during that time frame, I had met someone that had told me about a soft tissue therapy program at a school called Center of Advanced Therapeutics.
God, okay.
And
Here's
this,
what I think I know.
yeah, and this happened in 2001. And in 2001, I did a tour of this facility, and it was very athlete-driven, very sport-driven, the
Was
program.
this Arizona?
No, it's here. It was actually here.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't moved to Arizona yet.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
My bad. I know 6 details now, 5 of them. Okay.
So I ended up going to soft tissue therapy school. I did a 2-year program. The first year was the basic certification, that I continued on and did another year certification.
Okay.
And at that point, I started my own little therapy business right out of school. I worked in a chiropractic office, rented a little space, and started my massage therapy business. I was dating someone at the time that was also in my soft tissue therapy program, and he moved to Arizona to work for a company called Athletes Performance, which is now Exos.
Got it.
And I, in 2004, said, I'm going to move to Arizona. I'm going to go check this out. And so I moved to Arizona, and I started working at Athletes Performance. And so I was part of their rehab team for 7 years, from 2004 to 2011.
And did you do any like the building on that side, or were you purely an employee?
I was purely actually an independent contractor.
Oh,
I
okay.
also had my own therapy business there as well. So I began my own massage therapy office clinic.
Okay.
And met my friend Jen Kay, who we shared an office space.
Oh, I always forget. I know that, and then I forget, and then okay, which is a huge detail in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And actually through Jen Kay is where I think I made my biggest shift in my life, and biggest change was going through my values. Yeah. Shout out to Jen Kay.
And how old were you then? Was this like 24-ish?
No. So I did my values with Jen Kay in 2000, and I believe 10.
Oh, okay.
So this was just 10 years ago. So I was 30, I'm 42, and I was 32 years old. And I was married at the time, so I did end up marrying Jeremy, who was in my soft tissue therapy program from Denver. And anyways, so went through my values and learned a little bit more about myself, and I couldn't run. Even though I tried to run from Jen.
There was use from Jeremy. But more about Jen. That's crazy. Okay, so that, I think maybe like between, because I did my values with Jen, I think when I was 35-ish. Was it 5 years ago? 4? But I think there's like, you do like a pivotal shift, like 29 to 36. I feel like that's when it hits most humans. Like in that, I think that's when you kind of start to question things. I wish I did it a lot sooner, but I might not have been ready. Okay.
Yeah, so, no, I think same as you. I think that's, you know, a big piece of my values. My number one value is honesty, and I hid from honesty for myself for years. And that's like, you bypass the flags and you create stories. And I did that from the time I got married all the way until I decided, okay, it's time to be honest.
Yeah. Well, but it's almost like you challenged a little bit of that, like going GED route and like challenging things early on. Yeah. And I had a podcast with Jen Kay talking about values, and I had another podcast with one of my friends, Tim, and we talked about like getting back to our 18-year-old selves. Like I was almost like I was more dialed in at 18 on some things. Yeah. Like then I kind of then like lived life, let things filter in, and then I was like less on path than I was at 18. Yeah. I'm like, time to fuck out. How did I have this shit figured out as a young human, and now I'm scrambling for answers? Yeah, that's true. So it's kind of remarkable, like when you are, some people are so young, you do know. But then I think society gets it and you start to question things and you get off path.
That, or I think that we have this, we're taught that you can't do things. Yeah. You know, you're taught that that's wrong, or And I think that that's where most of my life I've been like, well, you might say that it's wrong, but for me, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like dropping out of high school, you think that's not okay, but for me, that's the best next path. Like that's what I need to do for me.
And you do that at, again, 18.
Yeah.
And this is like then, back then when society or family or was even less open-minded.
Right.
Those are pretty big, those are huge steps.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the whole point of the podcast is like graceful disruption around doing things. Like, are we doing them because we want to do them or because we're supposed to do them? And some of that stuff is so deeply ingrained in us, even if we're aware and have conversations and do work around it, there's still these like unconscious biasness in our minds that like, no, we should be doing this. Even if we're not, like there's still some hesitancy like pulling you back to
Definitely
rule following. So anyways, okay, we're in Arizona, we meet with Jen K.
She rocks my world, and I didn't talk to her for a month.
Oh, that's right, you were mad.
or
was this a
no, I was avoidant.
Okay.
Jen presented my values based on my own questionnaire, and she put these beautiful white sheets up on a wall and said, "Okay, Andrea, here are your top 3 values. Now let's talk them through." And I think for 2.5 hours I was sweating.
Okay.
Because the number 1 value is honesty. So everything that came out of my mouth needed to be honest, because she just flat out said, you know, your number 1 value is honesty. And so, you know, when she goes through a series of questions saying, you know, are you honest with yourself? And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well,
how much time and tequila you got?
Well, okay. So yeah, so at that point, you know, our session ended. I was with her for, gosh, I don't know, it was like a 3-hour session. I feel like it was forever. And I just, it was too much. It was too much for me to, I was ready yet not ready. I didn't want to deal with what my true, what this really meant and what needed to change in order for me to really step into my authentic self.
Yeah.
And I avoided her for a month.
Okay.
And then I said, okay, it's time. And we started doing the work. So I did a lot of self-work during that time frame. So for about a year, I did my own counseling outside of Jen. I went to a therapist for myself and did just my own self-work there, as well as I worked with Jen through my value system and just working on being able to step into that authenticity of myself. And I, at that point, realized I have a lot more power than I was actually using at the time. So I ended up getting a divorce and I moved back to Colorado, which was huge for me. I needed to come back home.
Yeah.
Be back here.
I think, so when you say you avoided her like for a month, like that sounds like a long time, but to me, like to have like breakdown and then break through within a month of like, okay, we're gonna face all this and like get counseling, go back to Jen. To me, like that transition is huge. Most humans, I know, would be like, I don't want to feel that, I'm out. Don't call Jen, don't do anything, let's keep doing what we're doing.
Well, I mean, she did work in my office with me, so I had to
so it's really hard. So you're just like, no,
I don't know that I could really run from her.
Okay.
Plus, you know, the value of what I received, it was by far, like, yes, was it scary? Yes, was it like, okay, you have a lot of work to do to get through this? Yes, but courage is a big piece of like what I've always had in life, and really making shifts take a lot of courage, and that was a big shift in my life, and I took that and said, okay, I got this, I'm gonna do it.
Well, and really that's kind of no different than kiddo 18 being like, I'm not finishing my strategy. So these patterns, like world, universe, whatever you believe in, Donna, is kind of hosting you and like feeding you this experience for like the next thing that's in order.
Right.
I laugh because I'm like, okay, enough lessons. Like, when do we get into the part where it's like, and this is for me, not for your journey, but for everyone's like, okay, we learned a lesson. Why do we have to keep learning it? But I do, or him. So okay, so we're back in Colorado now. Take us through entrance to Colorado. Single Andrea.
Single Andrea.
Okay.
On top of the world. Andrea's most authentic self was 2011. Coming back to Colorado, I have never felt so grounded and so in my own skin in my life.
Okay.
Through that shift of Arizona time, so I drop out of high school at 18. I get married at 27, I guess. So I move. I get married at 27. We file bankruptcy. My husband and I at the time. I get a divorce. Okay. I mean, I have all these shifts that keep taking place, and then I also started a new business in Arizona before I left to come to Colorado, which was called Pro Lead Therapy, which was meant to be a online online massage therapy, stretch therapy network for professional athletes wherever they travel. And so I created this platform for athletes to be able to access high quality therapists in whatever city they went to. So I had created a network of over 50 providers and connected them.
And not to interrupt your flow, but where did that idea come from? Like, what did that stem from?
During the time frame of me transitioning of this myself and all of this, the Gen K time, all these just ideas started flowing, and this was one of them.
Okay.
Thinking back on it, coming back to Colorado, so I had a lot of speed building this out in Arizona, and I come back to Colorado and it started kind of losing momentum. So I think that to some extent I created this path for myself to divert my attention of all the things that were happening. So there was so much change happening. I created this really awesome idea, and don't get me wrong, it's a really incredible idea, but it didn't actually flourish the way I wished it could. It was almost a little too early for its time. I'm doing this in 2011. I think if I had more time, or I had done it more in like now or in the last couple of years, it might have been a little bit more successful. But I essentially folded that business. So it was a business that I put together, and it failed.
Yeah,
so
which is also good. And that's actually why I asked, because I think it's a phenomenal idea.
Yeah.
But I was curious how you knew that intel that early on, because that was before recovery and all this. Not because it wasn't relevant in the medical community or like the working side, I want to say, but I don't think athletes or humans were ready for that. We didn't even know those are options quite yet.
Yeah, I think that during my time in Arizona, and especially working at Exos, or being part of the soft tissue rehab team and seeing what the professional athlete had access to, you know, all the recovery modalities that any professional sports team has, and the access to these amazing providers, it really like brought light on the fact that there's something missing, not only for the general population, but even for the professional athlete. How do they get access? They're flying me to them, so I'm traveling, you know, outside of wherever for a baseball players, because they need treatment and they can't find it in the city that they're traveling to. So during this time frame, after traveling and traveling and traveling, I'm like, this is cumbersome for both parties, for me, for them, for their families. Why not create this network? And so that's where the idea stemmed from, is my travels. I was traveling 3 weeks out of the month for athletes.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was just, it became a thing like this. I'm not the only provider out there. I know, you know, I appreciate being there for the athlete and that they love me so much to bring me along, but there's got to be a little easier way. So that's why I created ProLead Therapy.
Is there something like that now?
I don't know. I haven't really done a lot of research. I mean, there's a lot of apps now. Soothe is like a massage therapy app, right? Like there's all these different apps that people use, but it's different care. I mean, we're talking these high-end athletes want really quality care, and they want to know that who's coming to their hotel room or who's coming to their home is actually professional and has, you know, understanding of the human body and how it actually functions, especially in their own sport.
Totally. Well, I think number one, the athlete, you know, your career, your world depends on it. And health and wealth and lifestyle, and number one, there's a high-end market for everything. If any business human, write that down. They care about the ethos of the person coming in. They don't really just want the one-off. And some people do, that's fine. But that's gone from like professional athlete where their career, every livelihood depends on it, to person that just wants to be healthy because they need to be healthy for their job, whether they're stockbroker, parent, whatever.
Right.
People are spending time, energy, and money on that because it's a more relevant conversation.
Right.
So I would think if you started it again, it might do really well.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw that out there. I know you're a busy human anyways, but just so you know.
Yeah. So coming back to Colorado, I still had ProLead Therapy kind of in the mix, and it was time to let it go. It just was not, I lost the steam a little bit, and so did, it just couldn't get its legs.
Yeah.
I started running an office inside of a little gym in the Highlands called Vitruvian Fitness.
That's where you met Heidi. And
yes.
Okay.
And so that's where
our small world crosses initially.
Yeah. So I originally started there all by myself. I'd also, when I first moved back, started working at a chiropractic office in Wheat Ridge, and I developed some clientele there as well. But then through that, I built a partnership with the chiropractor there, and actually 2 chiropractors there, and we as a whole, 3 of us came up and created a concept which turned into a really, really great business here in the Highlands.
And and this was 6 years ago?
Yeah, 2012 is when we came up with the concept for Denver Sports Recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this whole time, you never technically had like full-time employee job?
No.
Oh, yes. Okay.
No, I've always been, that has never been a fear of mine.
Oh, okay.
I have never been afraid of letting go. So I've also never been afraid of it. I mean, I didn't have to be employed. I was always self-employed really growing up. Even like if I think about just all the times that I just always would push through and be like, no, I want to do this by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I identify with that strongly because a couple times I have had quote unquote full-time jobs, but it's always been I operate autonomously, or they understand how I work, or I mean, just as like a team sports human, and like team is my base, but when I work, I function the best by myself.
Yeah.
Until it's time to like collaborate or have a meeting or whatever. But that's interesting because I think most people are employee benefits, it's comfortable, this is what's needed. And I don't know if that falls under just that's preferable or that's society's impact of like, this is what you do.
Yeah.
Another podcast. Okay, so we are at, a recovery concept coming together, business starts. I was going in there, phenomenal setup, as an athlete. Andrea was I was introduced at that point to fascial stretching. I was a CrossFitter, so I was post collegiate sports. I was a D1 athlete, ACL tear in 2001, not to date myself. But pretty rapid surgery, pretty beat up. I don't think it was the greatest surgery, but also a different podcast. Started going into this recovery center.
Gone back.
Yeah, seriously, dude. Insert tequila. And I was, training to go to the games. I was pretty much as high as you could get for CrossFit. I was older. I think I was 30-ish then. So anyway, started really caring about my body, nutrition, alongside tequila, and all these other, opportunities. So fascial stretching, everything around the recovery center was great. Tons of stuff. So that's when Andrea and I would go to her and get stretching, and we would talk about like business and marketing and stuff that I was doing, and not that different. Different path, but kind of similar to what you were saying. Venturing, starting my own path post college, starting a lacrosse company, doing things just my way, and it was never really that weird to me.
Yeah,
it's more weird when I like talk about it and like kind of reflect, and I'm like, again, 18-year-old self, like, really? Okay, well,
boss lady.
Yeah, channel that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it wasn't even just like being naive, which I was as a kid, but just that fearlessness and belief of like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Like,
I have a motto. I always say, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
If.
Yeah.
So if you, whatever that may look like for you, ask yourself that question. What is the absolute worst thing that could happen?
There you go.
I have to move out of my place and find a smaller place. I don't know. Like, you just start asking yourself questions.
But I think even if you get to that conclusion of like this, whatever it is the worst thing, I always think it's worse to be like, to know you didn't do it.
To know you, yeah, absolutely.
Like that'll eat your soul. So we're having conversations. I started to do some marketing and branding stuff. That's right when I had started KO Alliance, my consulting setup. And it was actually a phenomenal one of my first experiences with KO Alliance, because we learned so much. Or I did. I hope you guys did too. About so many things. And then watching, as most things do, they grow, they evolve, and some things you stick with and you keep going. And then most things, I think you do move on. And being a consultant and kind of having my own business, it's contractual. So you build something, you move on. You build something, you move on. I think what's hard with both of our businesses alongside that, and the most valuable thing in business is relationships. Alongside our business is building those relationships and creating these really deep connections, when it's business, but it's also tons of time and energy. It's tons of heart, particularly if it's like, athlete therapists, like, you're helping them in their life. And a lot of athletes spend more time with their therapists than even their families.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like human connection. And then from that, you build out business relationships and personal relationships, and you go to baby showers and bar mitzvahs and
weddings.
Yeah, all of it. And then when you own a business collectively, with other people, or again, like in my case, I have contracts. You work with other companies. At some point, if it doesn't work out or it's time to move forward, it's always hard. Even if it's mutually beneficial and it's the right decision, it's always hard. And one of the reasons I'm really excited to talk and have this podcast today was to talk about, building something, because like you, my core value, my number one is honesty. Independence and then creativity are the next two. But honesty weighs heavy, and that's something like I've had to unpack a lot. And then moving forward, working with people that any lack of transparency is really, really hard for me. And if you know anything in supplements, consumer packaged goods, or fitness, it's not that transparent. So it's it's been a journey for me, and that's not putting myself on this, you know, a holy pedestal either. But it's tough. And I think there is a point in most things when you do get to know yourself, you know, when things just don't work anymore, and there's power in being like, okay, we're moving forward. And like your 18-year-old self, you know when it doesn't work, and you know when you make a step, so you have to make that step. So something that we have, you know, deeply in common is bleeding everything. Like there's no 50%. Like if I'm signed under a contract and this is it, I can't do, you know, just a little, and like I'm not great. I'm getting better with work-life balance, but it's hard for me to just do just enough. It's like, it's all of it. So as I build out business and I do these things, and when it ends, it's kind of like, ooh, I've leveraged all these relationships, I've done all this stuff. Even if it's the best move, it's still really hard. So no longer rambling. I want Andrea to share around, you know, building this business situation, having it be your baby, building your heart piece, and this business is still in existence. How is it now? Or like, what are some pieces moving forward? Like carrying those lessons, carrying that experience, carrying all the good that you got from it, and moving forward. How is it now? Generally speaking.
Well, I mean, I think just kind of going to even get to make the decision to let go of something that you love and that you really have poured your heart and soul into, is not an easy process, right? I mean, it wasn't like an overnight decision. This was a process that really took a long period of time. So it's a grieving process, to be honest.
Sure.
I went through a lot of emotional up and downs in regards to it. I had to weigh out all the options of what makes the most sense for all parties involved. I also I don't love the fight. Like I don't like to fight, and I feel like things should be, I'm in a place in my life where I feel like things really need to be streaming downhill. Like everything needs to be going down, like not up. You don't want to be paddling up a stream, right? You got to be going down the stream. And the moment that things start going upstream, it's like you got to reevaluate. And there are a lot of things that are worth fighting for, and it just depends on how far you want to fight, right? And I think that letting something go is really, really, really challenging. And after letting it go, and you get to kind of go through the grieving process, and you get to kind of watch the curtains kind of unfold, and then you're like, okay, that, you know, I'm kind of through on the other side. But there's still a piece of me and a piece of my heart that is just like, wow, that was like a big piece of my life that is still like, it's like a death, right? So I remember it. But at the same time, it's better for, I don't know, myself to have moved forward and be on the other side of it. And it's definitely been a growing process for myself to still, I mean, I think to some extent, not necessarily grieving it, it's just more of, that was just a wound. It's just like a wound that was there, man. That's like...
Oh, and I think it's important to acknowledge that, because you can't, if you're honest, you can't pretend you didn't care. You can't pretend you didn't bleed it. And you didn't put everything in. And then to know that, I would say this, I have to be careful with my own language of, to know that it didn't work out doesn't mean it was a failure. No, and I would never, I definitely don't think it was a failure. And I don't find myself as a failure for letting go. For sure. I think that it was the right thing to do. And like I said, on the other side of it, it's like, you know, this is best for all parties involved, and I'm better off for myself. And, you know, freedom is another one of my values. And it's like, I have a sense of freedom from the chaos and from the anger and the uncomfort. Like, it's, for me, that was also important. So. Well, I think that, you know, when you're out of alignment, it is an uphill battle. And kind of what I was referencing, you know, it's like, what, I have to keep learning these lessons. Well, clearly, if it's coming in, you need to learn it. So I think it's great when you can kind of have like breakdown, breakthrough, let it be, and then recognize, of course, I'm out of alignment. Because I know at this point, being as old as I am, like, as bad as it is, it's holding me back from something that's better. And that always sounds really cliche, especially in the thick of it. It's like, okay, great, but that doesn't make me feel better at all. Give it a little time, and then it's like, oh, okay, like freedom, whatever it is, alignment starts to happen. Then when I think you get away and you kind of have that breath, or at least for me, I really realize how out of alignment things were for me, or situations. Even if I bled it, it moves on. Even if it becomes more successful when I'm not there, which it never does. I know it wasn't my space, and if at the end of the day, I'm honest with myself and I care about impact, I'm not impactful in a situation. I'm, you know, it's dim in the light. So I think that was like a big piece that kind of helped me move forward in any situation that I saw move forward without me. But as you said, I still think it's really important to reflect and say, this was important. It is still kind of a wound or a scar, and it prepares us for like whatever that next step is.
Yeah, definitely.
So I would encourage anyone that's kind of in the mix of something where it is, whether it's, you know, job, divorce, kiddo, whatever, almost to take some space. I would say, my suggestion would be take some space, really try and separate yourself from the situation, even if you're currently in it, to really dig into how you feel about it. And I think that provides some clarity in your authentic space. Even if you haven't done work, I think you can really just pull back and be like, oh, I actually am really not happy.
Yeah, I think a personal check-in is huge. I think it's listening to what your real self really is saying versus avoiding it. That's a big piece for a lot of people. I think they avoid the real talk. What's really actually happening in there. And again, I think we are really good as humans to create stories around and to make things seem better. Let's find a better way, or let's, you know, bypass all these flags. But I think that's the biggest piece of every single time I've gone through one of these shifts where it's been like I've let go of something. It's like that feeling gets stronger and stronger and stronger inside of me. So when I have to make a decision, it's like it's a much easier check-in. It's not like I'm really trying to check, you know, is this really true? No, it's true. I mean, you really have to pay attention to your inner self.
Totally. And I mean, that is like truth as a frequency. It is whether you're on the woo side or the science side. I think that is like your gut and yourself like really telling you, which is also hard. And
listening to your gut.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's, for a lot of people, there's a lot, obviously the fear of the unknown. What is on the other side of that? And because I have had a lot of let go moments in my life, I think each time each circumstance is so different, but each time it's like it gets a little bit easier. I know that I'll be fine. I know that I will land on my 2 feet. There's always something there, and I'm also a really great manifester. So I'm constantly manifesting. What is next? What can I do next? I think that's part of the reason why I've never been fearful of having a job, or if I don't have a job, like what does that look like? It's like, no, I'm the creator of all things for me, and it's up to me to make that happen. And I think the moment that you start hitting that brick wall, it's like you're out of alignment. When you can't find things that are flowing your way, you're hitting that wall because you're out of alignment. It's time to check back in. So.
And the sooner you can recognize that, save yourself some time, money, energy, and tears. Don't fight it. Like
just do it. And just let it go.
But I say this on almost every cast. My like super like smart type A, resilient, you know, hardworking humans, I feel like we run through the wall the most, because it's like, I will fix this. I will make it right. I will. And it's really not about success or failure. It's more just like, I think ingrained in our brains from society of like, make it work. Find a way. Find a yes. But it's unraveling that. That's why I tell Jen K, I'm like, can you do this in high school? Like, this is skill set we need way earlier
in life.
That you can, you know, question a better way, blah, blah, blah. You know, when you're 19 versus like 36. However, on the flip side, I think timing is everything, and it's something you just need to learn down the road.
Well, and I, by any means, I would never say that I don't bypass these inner thoughts. Like, I will definitely still create stories. I mean, we all, again, we're human, right? We still do that. But I do have my internal check system, and my little honesty pops up, and it's like, hey, are you really being honest with yourself?
Not today, devil.
And then I hear Jen K in the back of my head, Andrea.
Hey, it's a little cute self.
With the big ass smile and beautiful teeth.
Seriously. Oh, Jen, shout out. Okay, and this is minor segue, perfect around Jen. The other reason I really appreciate Andrea is because she is science-based, experience-based, natural leader, and is gifted intuitively. So I love my mix of humans that kind of check all these boxes. Even if either side is not super deep, it's this really like beautiful balancing that comes in. And anyone that's an athlete or someone that cares about wellness, you know, the mental and the physical are equal parts. So tell us a little bit about how like the intuition has played a role in your world, and if it's more or less important now as time goes on.
I think it's more important now than it was before. But I think always, even growing up, I mean, I grew up very in a woo-woo family. I mean,
that's right. Okay.
I had an aunt that would use her pendulum on me at the age of like 6 years old.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she would check in and be like, should you be taking this Advil? Or, you know, I'm not 6 years old, I'm not taking Advil. Sorry.
And Advil's not paying, so we're not giving them shout outs.
Yeah, no shout outs to Advil. And really, I don't know if you should be taking Advil. We're drinking tequila.
Go tequila and turmeric. We got this.
But, you know, I had just a young age, crystals were always in my mix, and my mom.
Was that weird at 6?
No.
Or it was normal because you were a kiddo?
And I also just feel like it was norm. You know, I grew up in a Catholic family as well. So my dad is very Catholic. My grandparents very Catholic. My mom, I went to a Catholic school, and again, I was a Catholic school.
No wonder you're like, I'm out. Okay.
I did. I dropped out of Catholic school. Here's where it all started. Really, is 6th grade. I said I'm not going back to Catholic school.
Oh.
And so Dad not happy because Dad's like, you need to go to Catholic school. And my mom's like, sure, honey, you want to drop out? That's fine. We'll go to public school, which was in its own self like a holy crap, go from Catholic to a public school. But so yeah, I knew at a very young age again. I think that to some extent, I definitely think that I have an old soul in me, and I've been around, and I kind of am a little wiser because of that. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, woo-woo has always been in my mix. So I think that getting my hands on people, especially from a soft tissue therapy standpoint, is also another capability I have when it comes to intuitive. And I think that innately, as a therapist working with a client, there's a lot of therapy that happens, mental therapy that happens.
Huge.
We hold a lot in our body, and I think that as you start working on people's bodies, things start coming out and people start talking, and it just becomes this really, really sacred, safe space for people. And so you create a deeper relationship, not just on the level of working on someone's tissue and muscles. It's really like you get to know them on a whole nother level, and they start to really trust you, and you learn a lot more about them than probably some of their families know.
I'm thinking of a certain story, we're going to jump right over that. No, I completely agree. It's well, and there's so much trust there, because as an athlete, I mean, there's no way, and some of the athletes, the people I competed with were, you know, nurses, doctors, and they had some background in anatomy, physiology, whatever. But there's so much you don't know, and most of those modalities were completely new to me. So there's so much trust in it, like in my waist, and I don't have, you know, infinite budget as non-professional athletes, like pay for all this stuff, and nothing's inexpensive, however, worth every dollar. So there is a lot of trust, and it's a lot of time and energy. And I mean, it's literally physical. You are exercising muscles and motion, and it's painful, and you're talking. So I feel like we did get even into like deep conversation while I was probably crying over my knee or something.
I don't know. I have HIPAA. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah.
It's on record. It's funny because it's not that I forget. Like you and I are talking right now, and you're asking like, oh, I'm sure we did. But if you were in my treatment room and on my table and I started working with you, those things I would remember. Yeah. But I don't typically like carry it out throughout, which is probably a good thing. I don't carry it out of my room. Yeah. But I do feel like there is this like energetic space that takes place in a treatment room, and there's a lot of practitioners out there that really create that safe space, and it's like all things can happen in that room that really are like unraveling for clients on many levels. Do you talk about that like as a competitive edge for your, I mean, I always feel like the right, and every business human would hate hearing this, but I think the right thing comes in regardless of what the work you do, marketing, PR, whatever, or reaching out. Do you think the right people find you, or you can be open and talk about like, well, I have this side of, this is also what I bring to the table? I think it comes up in conversation if it's naturally kind of there. It's an organic scenario. I don't promote that I have an intuitive side to me. I don't. It just naturally, organically happens or unravels in the session. Okay. It's not that I don't want to promote it. I think that it's the right kind of people that, you know, the synergistic will take place. The synergy will take place if it's meant to take place. Yeah. I don't ever want to push someone or make them feel uncomfortable in a place, and so I think that I do have I've done this for most of my career, is really attract the right people. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I put it out there again, the manifestation side of me that I'm really good at manifesting. It's like I want to manifest the right clients that really actually want to receive the kind of care that I have on every level, whatever that looks like. So yeah, I think that it's because it really is such a value add, and again, it's not something that I would like post about or write about, but I think it's such an awesome thing. Like, and if it speaks to somebody like me, knowing that, being like, this person is really great at what they do, and they've got an intuitive ability, so even if you can't communicate what's going wrong, they can lead you down the right path, or however you package that. Like, to me as the customer that I am, or the consumer that I am, that is such an awesome. Right. It's like, oh shit, that's perfect. Like, how do I find that? So I do. It would be a weird thing to me to kind of bring up as a marketing professional, but as a consumer, it's like,
jackpot if you can find
Right.
someone that has both those, that combination.
Yeah, I think that there is a little bit of, especially working in with professional athletes and working for professional sports teams.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of keep some things a little bit on the bay. You don't want to be like, hey, I'm your woo-woo therapist
your
coming
doctor
in to treat all of the Denver Broncos. And by the way, we're going to win the Super Bowl.
I was going to say what happened this past year. Yeah, like, look alive.
But I think that there is, I think it just organically happens.
Okay. So now that we've got experience, entrepreneurial spirits in full kick, move forward from business opportunity, update us now on where you're at, what's going on.
So I am now more on, right now I'm actually an employee for a health and wellness company in Denver called Resilience Code, which is all things infinite health. Everything that has to do with the body, from the blood, the kinetic chain,
Human
to the
optimization
mind.
at its finest.
Human optimization. It's very functional medicine based, all really about looking at preventative medicine, not necessarily looking at, you know, reactionary. So Dr. Prusmack is the founder of Resilience Code, neurosurgeon, as well as a functional medicine doctor. Phenomenal doctor, phenomenal practitioner, and really just a phenomenal person.
Lacrosse alumni.
Yeah. And he created this to really bring health and wellness full circle and all in one location. So I currently am business development director there, or director of business development, I should say. I am an employee, so this is the first time I've been an employee in, gosh, like 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, I don't even know.
Does that mess with you, like, psychologically?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a piece of me that it's a little struggle, because
it's a transit. I've done it a couple times.
Yeah.
It's been phenomenal situations, but it's still psychologically, it's a little bit binding for me.
Yeah, it's a little challenging in the sense of it's just different restrictions that I've never, like, I've always been my own boss and my own parameters, and I'm the one that's, you know, built companies and taken them to whole other levels. And I would say that I'm definitely in a role and in a helpful way on the business side of things to have that platform in Resilience Code. But I originally started, and this is something I also do, is consult for health and wellness practices, right? I do consulting. I really pride myself on systems and processes and really creating a structure for companies to grow. Right. And I think that those that are out there that are, you know, brand new, opening up businesses and have really no direction, that's really a great place to insert me. It's like I can come in and really help with that. So that's another, like, avenue for my entrepreneur, is really consulting.
Well, and I think that's huge because, again, so much of this conversation around health and wellness outside of the professional athlete situation is emerging. And I think because of CrossFit, we were exposed to it a little bit early on, like 2010-ish for me. Now fast forward 10 years, parents want to feel good, people want to feel good, and KO Alliance started out really around sports, you know, spreading the gospel of fitness. It was very fitness niche specific. Now it's like everything, because companies, you know, are caring about ambassadors and health and wellness and showing up to work and feeling good and wanting to be there outside of trying to train for our professional game. Right. So that audience has grown so much. So I love seeing it on a macro level, because I know the more humans take care of themselves, the better the world will be as a whole.
Agree.
So, you know, outside of, you know, scoring touchdowns and winning CrossFit games, on the macro level, we're actually making the world a better place. And I do think it starts with, like, these, not little, but little big things. Taking care of yourself, feeling better, checking in mentally, getting in alignment. And unfortunately, these still really are new conversations. Yeah. So if you're exposed to it and you have opportunity to jump into some of these situations on a small level, fascial stretching, and then that goes to, you know, sleeping better, or values with Gen K, or what have you. I think it's such a huge trickle effect, like the way your aunt and pendulum, like you were kind of exposed to early. Now kiddos are seeing this because their parents are seeing it earlier, and it just starts to spread. So I think it's awesome that companies are coming to you saying, how do we do this? Because you did it, you know, beating your head through the wall, literally, like, figuring it out step one way before it was a thing. Yeah. And now you're exposed to it, and you can help streamline the process. Yeah. So call Andrea, she'll save you a lot of
I kind of like it. Yeah, there's just, just call me, I'll save you.
That being said, as a consultant, this is where we get good at picking out, like, okay, can I actually be helpful for you? Is this mutually beneficial?
Yeah, and that's important, right?
Yes.
Are you in alignment with the company? Is it actually make sense? It's not, you have to be very picky. I'm very picky with who especially now, just knowing my gift and knowing what I have to offer and really how I can help elevate a company on many levels. Jen K calls it, another Jen K shout out, but she calls it my fairy dust. It's like, not only do I come in and actually provide the information or provide it, you get me, which is huge. And I think there's, well, I say that, I just tooted my own horn.
No, well, I said earlier, I'm like, once I leave, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
It
like,
is huge.
It changes.
Yeah, I think that our, you know, because I do go all in, just like you said, you do too, and you believe, you give it all. And if I choose a project to take on, it's like my whole heart is going to go into this project because I must obviously believe in it, and I want to help make it that much better.
Yeah. And I've heard people like, well, you know, balance to that. Like, you only get paid 100%, don't do 110%. But in retrospect, I really don't have any regret like giving whatever I had to give at the time, because I absolutely think the lessons are mutually beneficial. It's great for them, great for them, great for me. And knowing, like, I don't even want to develop the practice of like having boundaries within that, for better or for worse. You know, even if I'm bleeding energy and exhausted, whatever. I'd rather give 100, learn from it, recoup, go on to the next thing, and be able to reflect and like knowing myself at that 100%.
Yeah.
And even if it rips your heart out, because it will. But I don't know that there can be middle ground there.
No, and I don't know that I would have regret either. I feel like, I mean, who we are as people is to give. I mean, there's no way I could be like, oh shoot, I'm just gonna give 50% today.
Right.
I mean, I think that
I'm tired.
no, I just can't do it. So
yeah, just get some adrenal fatigue pills, you'll get it.
And tequila.
Yeah, and tequila. No, seriously, that balance is real. I think again, it's just the balance. 100% still can be, it doesn't have to be like a bleeding 100%. It can be 100% and like enjoying it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that, do you know like your potential next steps would be? Like, what would be ideal world moving forward? Or is this it?
I think that, I don't know. That's a great question.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be an answer. I'm just curious.
I think the consulting piece, I'd love to have that just be a little bit more of a front-facing aspect of my life. But I also, I mean, I really do, I do enjoy working for Resilience Code right now, and I really believe in their mission and what they have to really like show for people. I think that if people really could understand what preventative medicine really is, and I think our longevity would be that much better. So I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I do feel that my consulting side of things could be of benefit. So that is a focus at some point, like a much more focus.
Yeah. Well, I think when you peel back and going back to Jen K's kind of like situation of knowing your value, knowing what you bring to the table, absolutely think that's critical that we know that first, so then when you present to said client, they fully understand it because it's coming from authentic space.
Yeah.
And then being able to pick out clients that aren't a fit, because again, regardless of paycheck, we all only have so much time and energy to put out there, and if something isn't a fit, it's less impactful on our end and doesn't present well for the long term.
Definitely.
So there's a filter there. But I think almost being a little bit less calculated in the pursuit, which again kind of works against everything we've ever been taught, to like take care of self, let the right things come in, pull back, take time to look at, you know, maybe what didn't work and why it didn't work. And if it keeps happening, then there's pattern, then we know there has to be a change. But pulling all the good from what you can, and then really just working on being open for the next right thing, even if you have no idea what it is. Which is often in my life, honestly.
I think being an idle. I think an idle mode, kind of a neutral position is, and I'll be honest, it's very uncomfortable. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I do to some extent, as much as I love working and being an employee and doing all that, I still feel a little bit in this neutral zone of like, I mean, I have a lot to offer, and it's like, you know, yes, I love what I'm doing, but I know that there's something more, you know, for myself, and but I'm really just, again, like you said, just trying to be open and just allowing, you know, things to come in, but it's uncomfortable. Neutral zone is uncomfortable.
Well, we get used to like having training a ton, tons of work, tons of this, and it's kind of 100, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but 100 miles an hour all the time, and I know that's not sustainable, and I keep learning that, but that is kind of like the comfortable space. Yeah. Whether it's where I thrive or it's avoidance or however it's labeled, it's hard to pull back and kind of be still. Right. Although I've gotten better at it.
I don't know if I have.
On days.
I like tequila. Let's have a sip.
Well, yeah. Cheers to stillness-ish, to kind of being still and letting good things come in. I don't know. I think it's just this constant balance and those check-in points. Even after many of these like breakthroughs or whatever they are, it's really critical. Do you apply any of this skill set now to new marriage?
Which part? What skill set?
I mean, just
My,
like pulling away, like this doesn't work, or maybe taking space and thinking about it.
Yeah, I think Luke and I are very much in alignment. He is literally my plug. Like I plug into Luke. He is so grounded. He is literally like he's my safe space. Like I can't wait to plug into
relationship goals. Okay, yeah, that's so beautiful.
So I think that. I mean, he may have a hard time with my energy because I'm like, woo, let's go, let's get after it. Let's go build the next thing.
You're on a 42, I need you to 1. Yeah.
And he's, he's out there fly fishing and loving life. And I'm like, hey, can you come home and I can plug in because I really need to plug in. And it's like, I think about it as my iRobot, which by the way is named Randy. And I get the little notifications that Randy is completed and he's at home. And I'm like, that's like me. I've completed the day and I'm going to go home to Luke.
Dude, that's so awesome.
And I'm going to plug in. So I mean, of course we have normal relationship things, but
yeah.
I think that I just, in general, am much more in alignment with myself. So I chose a partner that is that. And we're very much in alignment with one another. And I have an amazing guy in my life.
Yay! I love you light up right now, and that's awesome. Well, and the reason I kind of asked like in a roundabout way is because I think the more you take care, and I'm sitting here as a single female, let me know, but the more you take care of yourself, like number one, it attracts the right person, but then you can be the best partner. You can whether it's like a relationship or business or whatever. Like take care of yourself, and then you present yourself the best in any of these situations.
Definitely.
And as I said, business really is relationships. It's really not that complicated at the end of the day. Relationships are complicated, but the understanding that it is a relationship isn't complicated.
Yeah.
Okay. What?
Now I feel like I'm on the spot.
You're on the spot.
Coming.
No. I mean, what would you just say? We'll keep it light. To anyone that's kind of out there with all your experience, being an entrepreneur, being a rule breaker, or entering into graceful disruption very early. What are your words of advice to people out there? Maybe it's someone that's opening a business or wanting to leave school or anything, like someone stepping out of the norm.
I think one is listen to that gut, listen to that voice. Yeah. I think that a lot of people have a lot of opinions. Yeah. Especially when you're taking chances. People around you, family, friends, they want to, have an opinion. And I think you really need to weigh out, is that opinion really important? And I think be mindful of who you share things with. Really know that the person has your back and they're super supportive. But I mean, go for it. What do you have to lose? And ask yourself that question. What is the worst thing that could happen if you got to take the chance, right? So what's the worst thing that could happen with ProLeap Therapy? I closed it. Yeah. And did that suck? Sure. But I took a chance and I would have regretted not taking that chance. And it also had, it drove me. It gave me, so if something's driving you and it's really giving you passion and it's really making you feel good inside, go for it. Yeah.
I heard really simply the other day, like lean into the joy. And as simple as that is, it really is like clinging to those like really moments where you're like, I love this. Or, this is so awesome, or whatever it is. And those simple things really are so huge. Yeah. It sucks that it takes so many experiences and so many things and lessons and all this to like kind of get back to what you already innately know. Right. Worth all those things, but it's a lot to get back to. But I think that is kind of the baseline.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that people think that their path has to have a certain route, right? You have to go from point A to get to point B to point B to get to C, and I'm like a true, visual of that. That's not really, I dropped out of high school. My dad was like, you're going to be living on the streets, Andrea. And now I'm extremely successful and 42 years old. I've opened up 4 different businesses. Yeah. And I didn't go to high school, or I didn't graduate. I didn't go to a 4-year college. You're right. And now my dad's like, wow, like you don't have to have a traditional route to get to where you're going. You just have to keep pushing through and persevering.
One, doing that self-check-in, there's, I can't remember who said it, but it's on one of my tea bags. There's pleasure in the pathless woods. We're deeper, y'all. I love it so much because every time I think of it, I'm like, just the idea of walking on the path makes me feel suffocated. Like thinking like, here's all this woods and opportunity, but like, here's your road. I'd be like,
I'm going to go to the left. And
we already know where that goes. I'm going to go see it's over here.
Totally.
If it takes me 2 hours, just wait longer, like whatever. Yeah. I don't know, but I think that's so huge. Do you think along the way you surrounded yourself around people like that? Like, I'm never surprised that I have people like you in my world because I think that, we have common values, we have common, energies and these things, and like sports and that kind of stuff has always been a filter for me. Do you think you have, you were blessed to have people like you around you, or you sought them out, or?
Yeah, and I think the more in alignment I was, the more in alignment the people around me were.
Yeah.
So I was in alignment, and you know, I think like attracts like, we were all energetic magnets, and so I think that I would attract those kinds of people in my life that were super supportive and also.
Okay. Hey, dogs are here. I would agree with that, and I think it's also a note if you kind of look up and you see humans around, you're like, why am I around you? This is something I kind of experienced literally last year, where I'm like, you know, I haven't seen my really good friends in a while, and I've got certain humans in my life, whether it's work or whatever the excuse is, this really feels out of alignment. Didn't fully see it until I was fully out of it, but I do think that's a phenomenal indicator. Like, if you're wondering, look at the people around you. And it's like, if you are, these are like your homies that you actually hang out with, or you have to hang out with them. I don't know, I just think it's a superficial check-in, but it's very, it's a good intel of like what's actually going on right now. I agree. Okay, any other words of advice to young entrepreneur and anyone else questioning a better way?
Don't be afraid to let go.
Yeah.
I think that, again, I think we all have a lot of fear behind letting go of something, but if you really truly believe that you would be better on the other side, I mean, you gotta put yourself first.
Do it. And one point I'd counter to that, not counter, I'd compliment to that, recognize it when you're holding on. Yeah. It took some things I had to realize I was holding on to way more than I actually thought that I was, and I couldn't let go until I fully understood that I was hanging on to it. So it's definitely both sides of this, and that I think just more person by person. I was like, I'm fine. That's not a thing. And I'm like, oh, then once I get it, I'm okay with letting go. But like, it's kind of the other side of the process, which is a whole other probably podcast. But that little life skill set is hard, but it's like the one that kind of continuously represents itself and is really important. Yeah. Business, personal, whatever.
Very much so.
Okay. So Andrea, where do we find you at this point? Social. Do you want to share resilience code?
Hide.
Oh, you don't have to share either.
No, resilience code. You can definitely find me at resilience code.
What's their Instagram?
I think it's resilience code.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I should know this.
Yeah, you can definitely find me at resilience code.
Do you want to share yours?
Yeah, but
you don't have to.
I mean, you guys.
Some people don't.
If you really want to follow me, friend me would also send me a message. No, I actually have a
slide in the DMs here. Y'all heard it first. Go ahead.
I mean, I have a private account. I've never been one to, be. That's another piece of my life, I guess, and I think that this brand beautiful person over here would be like, you're, come on, like start showing yourself more. But I've just never been one to just be that vocal about who I am. Hey. But I'm Andrea Beaver 19.
Hey.
Bever.
Sorry, Cleo's announced herself. We see you, girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's so funny because again, this is why I started the podcast. Quite literally, my humans that are out there doing their influencer thing and putting everything on blast, God bless, that's fine. And a lot of the great humans I know aren't about it at all, and they have the messages that should be shared the most. So this is why I'm like, yo, come over. Okay, we're recording. Let's do this. Because I do think these messages, your experience, all the value you bring, everything is so incredibly inspiring, genuinely influential, and it's almost not better, but it's almost more impacting when you're not putting it on blast. It's like when people yell at you, you kind of move away, and then you whisper and they lean in. I think it's awesome, and so many of my humans like you are like, I'm not an influencer, I'm not doing this, and I'm like, okay, just come do a podcast. Let's just talk about it for an hour, and then I'll let you go. And I also think that at some point, Instagram and everything, the overexposure is going to become taboo. Yeah. And keep in mind, I'm a marketing professional, this is what I slang, so I'm just keeping it 100. But there's other ways to like connect, manifesting, and doing stuff the right way.
I think at one point I'll have a consulting website. I just don't have it yet.
Okay. Well, I think that, if you're listening, you're opening up a fitness and wellness situation, please reach out to Andrea. Even for just an initial conversation, I think it's worth its weight in gold because this is such new territory. It'd be like for me, for social media or like personal brand consultation, like have a conversation. Even if it's not with either of us, we talk to somebody because it's new space. And if agency or somebody big is trying to sell you a big package, talk to someone you know. Cause
I agree with that.
I promise you it's rocky territory out there, and this isn't tried and true stuff that's been around for a million years. So you need good people in your corner. Check out Andrea.
Thanks.
Any final words you want to share with the world before you can go back to non-influencer yourself?
Have courage to let go, man.
Yeah, okay. We'll go with that. Thank you. Please check her out. Check out Resilience Code. I'm excited to see what's next. And if you can't find Andrea, look up me and then I'll connect you guys if the consulting situation pops up.
Or just DM me in my...
Or just be careful. We're embracing it now, but we're going with it. But seek her out. I appreciate you. I really can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah.
Maybe in like 6 months to a year, we'll do another one.
All right.
And recheck in.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, babe.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.